welcome to this week's episode of The Inspired Evolution. You're back, you're here again, and it's an absolute treat to have you back and tuning in. This week's episode features Adam McInnis. Man, to say that music is this person's whole life is it doesn't do it justice. We dive deep into creativity, expression, and what it means to be labelless. Like, we get these labels: musician, artist, creative, entrepreneur, but really we're so much more than that. We're expressions of spirit, soul, and, really unpacking how it can be a disservice to have these labels. Adam's deep, man. That's the only way I can really put it, right? We're talking about frequency and music and creativity and expression, but ultimately the expression of life that's birthing and coming through us, and ultimately how to discern the frequency of the world out there from your own true authentic frequency, and how to come home and find yourself. A really intriguing question is, he says this: you use the word love every day for so many things. I love this, I love that, I love that cup, I love my partner. Have you ever defined love? Have you ever defined your own frequency? Tune in. Let's go on this journey. Hopefully you'll find your frequency on this episode. Alrighty. And if you're loving these episodes, as you know, please do us a favor. It helps me out a great deal if you hit subscribe and hit the bell notification icon. I appreciate you. Stay inspired. Keep evolving, yo. Enjoy this episode. Aside from my soul. Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and it is a humble yet wholesome treat once again to be with you here today. Welcome, guys. Bringing on Adam McInnis. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself, brother? You sound excited.
Yeah.
That was a hype intro.
I'm looking at your setup and I'm like, dude, he's got the headphones on. Do not blast his eardrums out, like, before we even start. You know what I mean? Like, just make sure he's comfortable. So it's sort of peeled back off the mic, but I'm back on. So
That's cool.
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great.
Good.
It's always an opportunity, a blessed opportunity to be in conversation, and like connection's one of my highest values. And I can really feel already through a previous guest, Patrick, that we had on. He was just like, dude, you're doing this podcast. It was made to get Adam on. Like, you guys are meant to connect and chat. So I'm just super excited to have you here and just follow that thread of connection.
That's
Thank
great,
you so much
man.
for doing this.
That's great. I appreciate having me. Yeah, whenever there's certain people in my life and in anyone else's life that'll be very rare because they're more connectors. A lot of people are going and going, but there's certain people who stop and then connect. And that's very rare when the connection is actually validated. Because, some people are like, you should meet so-and-so. And you're like, no, I shouldn't. You have people who are just want everyone to connect, which is different from someone who's like a vibrational connector who's really looking at, okay, these two things actually fit. That seems like it'd be easy to do, but not a lot of people do it very well. And so whenever I meet people like that and I generally trust them, it's always nice to meet the people they connect me to.
Thank you so much, Brother Bear. I wanted to start, and this is not atypical of how we roll. And I'm just really grateful for the space that you hold in this space for us to be able to just start super deep, close to the bottom rung, straight out of the outset. Labels, brother, labels. By way of, there is like, I know music is, for those tuning in, yes, music's a massive part of your life. But as we stop to unpack that further, it's not just who you are is music. Like, I know that there's so much more in terms of, the body of work that we invested in yourself, like entrepreneurially, mindset wise as well. There's so much in that it goes, like from the outside looking in, like music's everything is up to. And it's like, but for those that really sort of scratch the surface, it's like, but like the person underneath there is so much more than just, like music's my life. It's like, actually my relationship with the world is reflected in my creativity with the music. And I just wanted to start to unpack like how limiting labels can be and what your experience is that, because I'm sure people look from the outside in and your success and they're like, music's what you do. But I know, even just having chatted to you just pre-podcast, just how much more depth there is to just that music label. Let's call it that.
That's when you first said labels, I was thinking like, oh, we're talking about record labels. and then I followed you and I was like, oh, you're right, labels. And then I thought, Well, the people who probably know me closest don't have a label at all with me,
right?
because they know I don't have one myself. I could see if someone was Googling my name or something, because that's like, you know, one area of information in the world that is only giving you the storefront version anyway of anybody.
Exactly.
Both the good and the bad. It's just the storefront version. But I would say for myself, like, music is more of an expression of certain energetic sequences and information that I understand very well. And so because of that, it's given me the opportunity to be in a position to where I can completely wake up and be thankful for not just being alive, which is the first thing that I wake up and I'm thankful for. But the second thing to say, I get to actually do, I'm not even calling it a job because it's not a job. I get to have an experience through making sounds that people enjoy. And for that, people give me value in the form of currency that affords a lifestyle that none of my other family or people in my generation that I know have been able to accomplish. So in that frame, you know, and so I'm thankful for that, because when I first started, I wasn't good at anything. It wasn't like I was good. I wasn't a good singer. I wasn't a good guitar player. I wasn't, you know, a good producer. It was just, I was already in college. I dropped out of college, you know, all that stuff. But so for me, it's just the label part really doesn't exist, because I do a lot of things that I truly enjoy. And music's just, I think, like I said, the expression of something that I've mastered. Yeah, that's basically what it comes to. It's something that I've spent a lot of time like mastering and fine tuning to levels that most people never dive through. Even people who've, you know, gone to colleges and schools and else. Like I kept on realizing there was an iceberg that went deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I got to a point to where I went, oh wow, music is way deeper than what people even know. Because, like, let me kind of explain this. Like, when you're in the music industry, it doesn't mean, let me give you a perfect example. If you're a farmer, it doesn't mean you actually know what's in the pesticides that go in the soil. You might hear the word pesticide, but you don't know what's actually in all the ingredients of it. The chemical compounds. But so you're just still going about your job being a farmer, and you're more worried about how things look and how things taste and people buy it. You're not really thinking about the pesticide thing that might come over, right? It's the same thing with music. The deeper you go, you realize that the word musician actually stems from the word magician. When you understand that musicians create an energy form that is one of the only energy forms that can travel around the world and never lose its intentional vibration from the beginning. It's one of the only forms of energy that can do that. If you notice that a conductor uses a wand, when you start to understand what's actually happening here, we might ingest music as a form of entertainment, but that's just this much of what it's doing.
Sliver.
Yeah. It's just a sliver. So for me, like I say, it's just, I'm thankful to be a part of something that most people who are even in it have never delved to the level and degrees of where I feel it. So because of that, I like to share it.
I think I feel an iota of what you feel. And I say that humbly. The intro episode, the first ever episode of the Inspired Evolution. And this is super audacious, guys. And I'm aware of how audacious this is. So pardon me for all the audaciousness of this, because I literally feel like Bob Marley's a saint. But the first episode was like, hey guys, like, I know that in a world that there's so much content, I'm here, like, and you know, a big part of it would be, please try and consume less and connect more to nature. But you know, people's content like Bob Marley has helped me connect so much to the roots and the experience of what life is about for me. And as I've grown and evolved, my relationship with his art has evolved, and he's passed on. But yet, like you described, the magic and the remains, you know, and it's like, whoa, that's inspiring. And I'd love to sort of be able to contribute to content in such a way, audacious as F, but you know, that was kind of a young, humble man trying to find his way in the world.
No, but you're right. And it's funny, I'll tell you a quick story. Is one of the first jobs that I got as a engineer when I was trying to come up in the music industry, and I basically was just anything time someone would hire me at all just to sit behind a board and press buttons and try to record something, I was happy. But one time I was hired by this family. They were, I'm not going to name the name of the family, but it was a very famous musical family. They had, one of the biggest acts of like the 60s and 70s, and very transcendent. And their family is the one who controlled all the money because the artist had passed away. And they had these old recordings because they owned some of Bob Marley's catalog. Oh. And they hired me to come to the studio. I'll never forget it because it's like one of the first gigs where I was getting paid pretty good money. And I was like, wow, they're paying me really well. And going up to this studio in the mountains and the hills and everything. And I get in, there's this security guard, this big security guard in the front. And I remember I walked into the studio and they had like a 1/4 ounce of weed by the desk. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And they're like, okay, we need you to listen to all of these unheard Bob Marley recordings that were done when he was
Jeez, I gotta hang up. This is too good. Okay, sorry, please continue.
When he was in rehearsals. So these are songs that no one, this is like someone put a microphone, it was one of them, put a microphone in the room when they were recording or coming up with ideas and practicing. Oh. And this family happened to own the rights to these. So they wanted me to skim through all of them. I think there must have been like 6 hours. And they wanted me to skim through all of them and find pieces of songs that no one's heard before so they can make them into DJ remixes. And I remember I was like, okay, so they were like, but we have a security guard to make sure you don't leave with anything. And we have weed so you can get high. And I remember like, this is my welcoming to a different side of the music industry. Okay. So I sat there, and here's what was interesting. And I'm not that massive of a smoker, but it was just interesting how they perceived it. Like, you're listening to Bob Marley, so you need to get high. That's how they kind of looked at it. But I started listening, and what was interesting is then I started getting pulled deeper and deeper into the conversations they were having about their life, because they were singing, but then they were taking breaks and they were talking, and they were just talking about, regular life, like we are now, like how are things and blah, blah, how are things with your wife and how are things with the kids? And, I'm working on this new song. What do you think of these lyrics? And, just different political things are going on. Like, but I'm in the room with people who, I listened to that music growing up my whole entire life because my mom is a massive reggae fan. So to be in the room with someone that inspired me in so many ways, musically,
the intimacy of that,
thought, yeah, exactly. And you hear them like rolling a joint and then lighting it, and it's like right by the microphone, and for a moment, because of the state I was in this dark studio and being lifted by the energy here and lifted by the energy there, and for a moment I was actually in the room in a sense. I was actually in the room with people that I had looked up to for so long, and hearing what they were going through and hearing the struggle, the beauty, all the things, and then going, okay, I can feel the energy in this room. So hence I was able to connect to what went into the songs, because that's the reason why when you think of reggae, you think of artists, but you really only think of Bob Marley as the overall like archetype, right? That's the exactly. That's what you think of. And there's a lot of artists. When you think of pop, you think of all different kinds of artists. When you think of rock, you think of all different kinds of artists. When you think of dance, all different kinds of artists. But when you think of reggae, you think of this. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it comes down just to the mindset, because it wasn't just, okay, so people can learn how to write songs. People can write songs with angst. They can write songs with beauty. They can write songs that are political. They can write songs that are, just funny. They can write all these different songs. But for someone to connect their intention in all of their music and it be one worth of more in-depth thought, but carries a melody that makes you want to also sing along, is very, very unique. Because what most people haven't done is, if you're listening to this and you're an adult, go actually read the lyrics to a lot of the songs you like of Bob Marley. Like, read them, and you will go, oh my God, he was prophesizing the whole time through music, which is different. That's what made it different. And that's the reason why it lasted. It wasn't just a song for you to dance to. It was a song you were dancing to that you didn't know you're being prophesized to. That's why it's never lost its intention. Because throughout all the years, you hear, oops, I did it again. And you hear, do you believe in a thing called love? And you hear all these different songs, and like, all I do is win, win, win. You hear all that, but no one was prophesizing. So in 5 years, that no one wants to hear it again. You get bored of it, but you're not putting it on repeat. Marley is on repeat in people's houses, because the whole time he's giving you a mantra.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all those elements of the minor chords, which makes you feel connected, but then a melody that made you feel uplifted, and then a real story that had depth to it, and one that had pain, but also had redemption. You mix all those things together with an honest intention of the person who didn't care about the things everyone else wanted. And it wasn't for sake of people to think he had some sort of valor or he was too humble. He was like, no, this is what I believe in. So why would I change my belief because you want to give me money? Where nowadays people just throw by the wind. Someone offers them money, they're ready. They have zero boundaries. They have zero level of what is the true essence of who they are. They're just biding time to whoever will pay them for the essence. And he already knew who he was. And so, and I say that on a spiritual level, like he knew who he was spiritually. So he didn't have to change for the material stuff on this planet. And that kind of understanding of oneself gives them a level of, you can say success, you can say enlightenment, you can say whatever it is, but it's a level that doesn't have to conform to the level that's trying to pay for it. So you can hear that in the music. It's all that.
Yeah. And that bleeds into, oh, thank you so much for sharing, Brother Bear. Gorgeous. And feeling into that, right? Like, and I love what you're sharing there is like, I'm sure, them sharing about where they're at in their life has a lot to do with what they're expressing through their like we are creation, so they're creation, right? So and that depth of, and this still staying with the labels and the boundaries conversation to some degree, it's like, as you're mastering your music and understanding that frequency, the boundarylessness of how that is interrelated and correlated with you learning and mastering yourself, and because life is an expression of you.
Life is an expression of the reflection of what you internalize. The you that it internalizes all these different patterns and things and vibrations, and then it goes, okay, how do I express this? And all animals are doing it. And like birds are singing, they wake me up every morning, but it's a different song. And then the monkeys are growling, and they're, one does something to the other, and the squirrels are running around in circles. Like it's all about the flowers bloom and bloom different colors. The sunset's a different color every single night. These things are constant expressions, and then we reflect how we feel about them through this experience, But what I think is really interesting about something as simple as an instrument, and the reason why I talk about the magic in it all, is that no two people can play something the same way. It's, and it's really from that internal space, like the way someone plays bass, how they even hit a note, someone else is not going to hit it the same way based on how they live their lifestyle. Their whole entire life goes into just how their finger hits something. That's when like if you listen to like something like Kurt Cobain, and he was just like, come as you are. Like he was like hurting when he sang because he was hurting inside. So these little things that connect, and you're like, oh, that connects to how he spoke in interviews, and that connects to this, and even to his throat and how he placed the air. That's how connected the instrument is. Because he could have sang with a much cleaner voice. It would have been less pressure on his vocal cords. Like all those things could have happened. But he's like, no, I have to feel the pain for them to feel the pain.
It's the interesting thing, isn't it? Like, because when you show up 100% yourself, it's less about I think the refinement and the skills help to a certain degree, but nonetheless, when you're actually, and this is what we're dancing about, it's like the energy of things, right? When you're connecting to the energy of it, is bigger than you in many ways, but it is you in so many other ways, that it's just the rawest expression is whatever. Yeah, you get that edge, right? Like it's really interesting.
Yeah, and in music, so the things I was telling you about is in where I said there's certain levels that you keep diving down, you realize like, wow, this actually connects to this whole thing over here. And like, wait a second, let me go study that for a little bit. You study that and you go, whoa, you mean that connects to this over here? So music's like that in the sense where music is one of the strongest forms of hypnosis in the planet. But most people don't know that. Why would most people don't know that? Because most people don't think hypnosis is real. Most people think hypnosis is a clock ticking back and forth. But hypnosis is just stimulating the subconscious mind, putting a suggestion into it, and then repeating it enough times that it becomes a part of the new programming of the person. So let's just use it as the basics. Music with a drum beat, you've probably heard people say things like, you're like, those aren't the lyrics of the song. And they're like, yeah, but I just like the beat. Right? You've heard that probably before.
Yeah.
I just like the beat.
I've said that before. Yeah.
There you go. Right. So it's important because if you are reading something like a mantra to yourself, if you were saying it without the beat and it wasn't good for you, you probably wouldn't keep saying it. See, that's how deep it is. But you'll hear someone say, you know, go to the club, drink all the drinks, shake my booty, throw money on me, and you're like, take away the beat. Now say that. How do you feel? Just repeat it all day long. How's that feel? Yeah, I don't know if I really want to say that. And you're like, yeah. Think about it, because you're like, yeah, the beat puts you into a trance-like state. You didn't know that because you don't understand the power of music. You think music is something that is just like on the shelves, and you listen to it on Spotify and and that's what you perceive it. So therefore that's the energy and the level of care that goes into what's happening. But if you are actually ingesting it into your body, which you are ingesting it to your mind, which turns into your body, even stronger than your body is what your mind does, you give it this veil, a filter of like, but that's okay. And I go, interesting. Because what I'm seeing is you being put into a trance-like state. And then I'm seeing a mantra being installed. And then I'm seeing you act like the mantra. But here's the trick. The people who are creating it sometimes don't even act that way.
Yeah.
So then we get deeper. It's like, what's actually happening to you and why?
Yeah.
So like certain little things, like there's formulas to music that, and the wild thing is I'll talk to people who graduate from all these high-end schools and they become my mentees because I have a private mentorship group where I teach producers and musicians like the very upper echelon levels of what you need to know that happens in all hit songs and how to craft this into actual living, how to negotiate your contracts, how to find a good team. All this stuff is formulaic. Like it's just like building any other business. But they make it seem really hard in all the movies. The movies make it seem that everyone has to get lucky and then someone's going to discover you. And then, and it's always the same plot.
Yeah. Born a star. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. It's the same plot. Literally, that's a scary thing about the way this whole works. It's like kid and watch, your subconscious will laugh when you realize it's all the movies, right? Okay. So it starts like this. A kid who is singing in the mirror with a household object, and a parent who says, stop singing, stop that noise, or playing guitar or something, right? Knocks on the door. Come on. We have to go somewhere, blah, blah, blah. The kid can't time because the parent's always interrupting the kid. The best friend always believes in the kid when they're young. You can do something when you grow older. Then there's a flash forward. And now that they're a bit older and they want to leave the house, but they can't. And they have a dream to be a musician. And they say, one day I'm going to be doing that. And the parents are like, yeah, whatever, blah, 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 blah. There's a smile. I was like, then that kid goes to an open mic or some sort of event that they're not prepared for at all. And the friend says, you should go on stage. That kid gets on stage and they walk up to it. And the first thing they do is they tap the mic and it feeds back. Hello, is this thing on? Everyone's like in the audience going, just sing already, clanging their glass. It's every movie. Clanging their glasses together. And then what happens is the kid looks at the person playing the music and goes, okay, let's do it. It's the guitar player, the piano player, the karaoke DJ guy. Then it's always a very soft voice at first. It's like, one day I would be, and then someone's like, just sing it already. And what happens is the person goes into their mind. They have a vision of their grandmother. Their grandmother tells them they can do anything because they are limitless. And they just have to believe. Then next thing you know, it's like, but I've been away in a war. And all of a sudden this whole voice comes out and blah, 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 right? And they hit this crazy big note at the end. They open their eyes like they don't even know what they did. Right? Which is impossible because everyone who's at that level has practiced many, many hours. Yeah. But they don't even know what they've done. They walk up stage, their friend grabs them. They're super excited. They go to the bar and there happens to be a manager sitting right there. See? And the manager says, doesn't talk about studio costs, doesn't talk about the percentage that he's going to get, doesn't talk about the percentage that the label's going to get, doesn't talk about how anything breaks down. It's just, you got something special. Yeah. And so here's my card. The person never says, who do you manage? What have you done prior? There's no checks and balances. It's just you're a manager. And then all of a sudden her friends, the best friend's like, the best friend's like, you got to do it. You got to go. You got to go. The scary thing about that is that also is a start of every horror story that we've seen on the news. When they're like, so-and-so girl goes to studio at midnight and she's having press charges and you're like, yeah, because they've been training these kids. They've literally been training these kids. There's over a million people. Yeah, there's over 1 million people who put singer, or songwriter, or producer on their Facebook or Instagram page with no knowledge of how the business works, no real in-depth study, just a bunch of movies that they've watched, and they literally just walk into these traps. And I'm like, yeah, because they ushered you in. They literally ushered you in. So it's weird in my business, and I will say this because the entertainment business is the only business where anyone other than, I will say, this new wave, there is a new wave of people who are doing this in entrepreneur scene. Yeah, that is one. There's a new wave in the entrepreneur scene, the online entrepreneur scene that's doing it too. But a lot of it's connected to what I'm going to say. Because the entertainment business is so connected to ego and because it's so connected to power being in front of people, anyone can give themselves a title. And that's the reason why it's so dirty. And that's the reason why it needs to be cleaned up. Anyone can go on right tomorrow on Instagram and say manager. No prerequisite, no studying, never went to business school, never had a mentor, nothing. Just says manager, and people start sending them demos. There was a woman that I saw do that one time. There was a random guy posting this songwriter page I was on, and he said, I'm a manager looking for artists. That's all he put. So me being in the business for 15 years looks at this and goes, that's really shady. Because you would say, I'm a manager for X amount of artists, X, Y, and Z. We've recently had some pretty big successes, so we're looking to bring on a few new clients. If anyone has really standout music that you feel like you can truly be on the top of the charts, here's the email to send. If we don't respond, it's just because it didn't make the cut. It'd be very just like kind of broken down and linked to a website. But no, this person just said, I'm a manager looking for artists. There was like 45 comments. Here's my songs. Here's my songs. Here's my songs. Here's my songs. But then I found a mother, and she posted her daughter. She posted this 15-year-old girl, and the girl was actually a little bit talented. And I went and checked up the guy's name. The guy had been arrested not too long ago for like something about concealing a weapon and some battery charges or some crap. I found his mugshot. It's not hard to find. It was one Google search. But the mother was real quick to post, and she said, here's my 15-year-old daughter, blah, blah, blah. So I wrote under the comment, I said, hey, and it's this guy's comment. And I say, hey, before anyone starts sending demos, just a word of advice, it's probably best that you look up the people you possibly working on and ask them some questions like the following. And I said, like, who have they managed? What's the level of capacity of income they brought in a year for their artists? Like, what you have to start asking some just questions.
Tangible stuff. Yeah.
Some just, stuff that any person who's really in the business should answer and happily answer. Because if they're successful, they're gonna be like, oh, so here's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
They're not shy. I'm not shy about my catalog. I'm like, look, like when you've done things, you're proud of it. Why would you not be? So when I said it to the mom, this is what the mom's response was. She said, oh yeah, I mean, I know how this business is. I'm totally protecting of my daughter. I didn't look him up yet, but I figured someone else would have vouched for him or not by now. So how would he respond? And I said, so you want to give this guy your daughter, and then when someone else tries to help you, you say you're trying to test the guy who recently was arrested for assault and battery? That's what you thought as a mother?
Welcome to 2021.
Now I said it in a much more eloquent and nice way than that.
I bet.
But it was just so weird to me that she actually wanted to kind of like act as if she had a leg up on this guy, which actually it was the opposite. She did not research this stuff. She totally threw her daughter into the wolves and didn't think about this. And I see parents do this because they have this want for their child to be famous so they can live vicariously through them. And it's really scary when you see, a lot of these pop icons who are from TV shows from back then, like Nickelodeon and Disney and all this stuff. And then you start to see that crack happen. Because there's so much pressure on them. It's just not believable pressure. No one would want that for their children. And then what happens is other people start to mimic these artists when these artists are in a depressed state.
That archetype. Yeah.
Exactly. So the archetype becomes like really over the top and almost trying to overly cover an insecurity. And anyone you can see their insecurity based on the amount they go in the opposite direction.
Mm.
You know, like if someone has massive surgery, they have an insecurity. It's there. That's how much the insecurity is. It's based on what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is, 600 pounds and ripped, you're like, there's something there. There's something there. And it's not saying everyone's bad. It means we all might have some trauma and they're expressing it through these ways. And that's their way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I tend to notice is that these parents will put their kids into, these kids start getting older, these kids start getting depressed, and then everyone's capturing it on TV. And then a bunch of other kids think it's cool just because it's on TV.
Sensationalizing, the toxic behavior.
It's weird because that just goes to show how our brains have really not evolved, because we can't, and I say we being people, not myself, people have a hard time of disconnecting between a screen because it's so new to them.
Yeah.
Like they think they know someone just because that person's on a screen.
Yep.
That's how primitive our brains are. And no one's really getting that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's, if you really want to think about how primitive our brains are, it's that if someone sees someone on a reality show, they think they know that person when they see them in real life. That's crazy. People will look at celebrities' children and know their names. That's crazy. They don't even know their own cousins' names from like the aunt that's second removed. They don't know those kids' names, but they know Kim Kardashian's. And they voice their opinion on what they wear. We have moved into a world of insanity because we've been so distant from nature.
It's a disconnect.
It's a disconnect from all the actual energy on this planet. It's completely disconnected, but it's been rebranded as a way to keep the system constantly shocked. And so there's this interesting thing that happens with our brains. Like whenever people think of love, because 99.9% of people have never been asked to define the word love, but they use it all day long.
In various different contexts as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is, here's the thing. That means they're not using it objectively. They're using it subjectively. So if no one's talking about the same object in the room, how is any communication actually happening? If five of us in a room and we say, hey, can you pass me that blue mug? All five people know what I'm talking about. If I say, pass me the mug that we love, no one's going to know which one to pick. They're going to pick based on their own concept of it, because no one who is older than them said, write down what love means. Understand it before you say it. That's a powerful sacred word. You're using a word you don't know how to use right now. And you know how powerful words are. We tell you how powerful the tongue is, how powerful the words are, but yet you haven't defined the strongest word that you use on a daily basis. So you've belittled the word, which means you're belittling your life that's in comparison to it. And you're belittling your relationships, and you're belittling your friendships, and you're belittling the things that you do and your time that you spend, because you use a word you don't actually know what you're saying. And then you get depressed when you don't get the reaction from the word, because you're using it in a way that's way lower than what it's meant to be, but you're expecting a higher quality value. So it's weird, man. When I see these things, I'm just like, I feel like the screen really shows me how primitive we still are, when people assume, they'll say, I love her. You don't know that person. You literally do not know what they do with the minute the camera shuts off. No clue. You have no clue how they're trying to scheme against you. You don't even know if they're plotting to sell you something right now, but you love them. You don't even know if their life is real, but you love them. We got to change that word. You might like them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't sacrifice for them, and you wouldn't commit. You're not loyal to them, so you don't love them.
Yeah. What I'm hearing a lot, thank you so much for sharing that, brother. What I'm hearing a lot is also our relationship with cultivation. Yeah, and this is one of the things I often reflect upon is, there's a massive ode to like everything, in between the subtext of everything you just shared is like, even the way we consume content, the way we share our words, even just the way we cultivate our relationship with things that are not on a screen or digitally, or if we're cultivating more screen time, do you know what I mean? Like everything seems to be this cultivation. this propensity for, you know, if we're like every sort of action is then building on the stack for the like more of a propensity for the same action, you know. And I think it starts with something as simple as, and I think, you know, breaking kind of through a little bit and realizing, I love what you shared in terms of you're listening to a beat and the beat's hypnotic and you're down with it. But what they're saying is not something you would ever say to anybody ever in any place. Like, and I'm thinking about, I grew up on hip hop, right? So like the misogynistic stuff that I listen to, bro.
Think about it. Like, from the window to the walls. From the window.
Stop making me think about it. Stop it.
You're like, wait a second. Listen, my aunt, who was like, my aunt was like 52, and I walked into a party. And it was a 13-year-old party, and my aunt was singing from the window to the walls, and she had on jeans that had sparkly things that said apple bottom or something on the back. She was 52 years old, and I was like, wait a second, what are you doing? I was like, I said, do you know what the song is saying? And she goes, no, but it sounds so fun. And I just went, okay, like, wait a second. You're raising other human beings? Because it sounded fun. Oh dear, we've gone off course. We've gone backwards, and we don't know it. We think because we're progressing, because things are getting easier, but that's actually dumbing down our logical skills. And we use those for many, many centuries, and now they're being removed, and other people are taking control of them, and they're using that control to be turning it on us, and we're not seeing it happen right in front of our face.
Because it's too convenient to not look.
Because people are losing their natural ability to know what their DNA is telling them at all times, and someone else is programming what the suggestion should be. It's perfect like this. I was saying before, like I can ask 5 people in the room, what's love, right? And they're not going to give me the same answer. What happens in our brain when you look for the answer of love is most people they say, I feel like love is this, or to me, love is this. And they then tell me their answer. When they're searching for the feeling of love, it's always foggy. It's a feeling, right? It's this feeling. The reason why that's happening is because parts of your neocortex actually shut down when the idea of love enters your brain. It's the same part that shuts down when dreams enter, when you're like, I want to do this in my career. When people tell me what they want to do, I want to win a Grammy. You know, it gets foggy. They don't know how that would feel. So they just kind of start to imagine things. It's very foggy. Same thing happens when people are thinking of sex. They're like, okay, I want that person right there, and that'll be really, and they start to imagine it. Once they start imagining, things get foggy because they're not paying attention to the present logistics. They're paying attention more to this feeling that they get set off on. But here's the interesting thing. Most animals have a mating season. Then they have a season where they're using their logic because they're raising something. See, what's happening in our society is that they're keeping everyone in perpetual mating season because they're manipulating. You see what I'm saying?
See.
So the logic is minimalizing. The fog is increasing. And then people are putting in suggestions. Buy this, watch this, do that. Like, check this out. If you ever watch a TV show on Netflix or any other shows, I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm saying look at the storyline. What's actually, if you looked at it, like, what's it teaching? 99.9% of all the dramas that are on TV that are successful teach manipulation. Best friend to best friend manipulation, friend to lover manipulation, person at work manipulation. That's the ongoing thread that's literally wired through it all. And then people start to actually do it in the real life, and they're shocked by the results. They're like, I can't believe you slept with your best friend's boyfriend, but we were drunk. Yeah, you watched that in the movie. You watched that in the movie.
And the programming literally pops out in your life. And it's interesting even just feeling into like you identifying it as manipulation. And then that obviously reflects the seed intention that's in there because it's called programming, right? And then the way that intention. Yeah, man.
Exactly. Trust me, next time you just go watch a show and just look at what is the thread that goes through each character that they show. The character starts with building a relationship with someone who they eventually manipulate. And then it goes on to how that character connects to another character, and how the spider web of manipulation is the one continuing factor that goes throughout. It's manipulation and sex and greed. How do those connect? And the whole show is about that. And if you look across all networks and go, how come we don't just have a station that doesn't do that? No, I'm being serious. Like how come there's
in spite of illusion, bro.
How come there's not, just a few stations that are like, you know what? let's not use that tactic. What if we can find a different one? Because we are it's called television program. So we are programming people. We know we're doing that, right? You see how if you look on the Instagram or something like that, people all look the same now. It's not rocket science. They're being programmed to look like that with the same cheekbones, the same eyebrows, and the same lips, and the same lighting. And this is a program, and people are living in it like a video game, and they don't realize they're in it. So then when someone tries to shake them out and say, hey, just look around for a little bit, the easiest way to do is ask them those questions. What is love? And then they go, oh, I don't really know. Do you realize that you've been watching shows that just teach manipulation all the time, like all the time? And they're like, oh shit, no wonder why I did that really fucked up thing back in the day. Like, I should have done that. Like, and we've all gone through it. It's like, I should have done that. And then you learn, but some people don't learn. What they do is they get addicted to the drama because they've been watching it on TV. So they're like, I like those chemicals that came from that. I don't really like them, but my body liked them somehow. And they start to form neuroplasticity around that thing. And they become that identity, which becomes their life. And they look back over a bunch of years and they're like, how come the good stuff didn't happen to me? And then they turn to
a certain thing.
Exactly. And then they play victim. And unfortunately, in our society, then there's massive groups of people who play victim. Now, there's some people who generally are, but our society supports massive groups of people who are creating the thought that they are, which is different. And I've met these people where I'm like, they're like, oh, Adam, I can't get into the recording studio. So, you know, I'm working with this guy and I know it's a little shady and but I just don't have the money. And I go, do me a favor, take out your phone. Okay. Go into your closet, turn on your video camera. Okay. Let me just count what you have. Leather jacket, jeans, shoes, purse. Or for a guy, leather jacket. You know, like his sweat gear,
Yeah.
Jordan. I go through it all, right?
Yeah.
And I start adding up the numbers.
The values.
And I get to the end of it. Minimum of most people's closet, I see they have from anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 worth of things. Now, if I ask most women to go into the bathroom and say, go through all the things that they have that's in a bottle or anything plastic, right? Just count it off. Eyelashes and this and that, and they count shampoos and conditioners, this kind of shampoo and that kind of shampoo and this kind of shampoo for this kind of hair and this kind of we start going through average $500 to $1,000 in just that, especially with makeup involved and all these other things, hair dryers and all, because those things get expensive. Go into the living room. What do you have? Big screen TV. Why do you need a big screen TV? Do you have parties all the time? No. How many people usually come over your house? Well, just me and maybe one of my friends or two friends. Why do you need a $2,000 screen? So by the time we get out of all these things, how much you pay for a month for rent? Oh, I pay $1,200. $1,200? Why can't you live a little bit outside the town? I got to be where the energy's at. Okay. How much is your car note? Well, I paid $300, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I paid $500. So I start to calculate the stuff and I'm like, yo, you've literally spent $20,000 of shit that you don't need. So there's no victim of other people. There's no, you had to manipulate the situation to get that thing. It's you. It's that no one held you accountable. And because of that, you've just continued to create the addiction more. And because it's not a hardcore addiction like heroin, people have let it slide because you got a lot of yes men and women around you. You don't have people like me around you who will check you. Like that's the thing. And I notice this, there's a lot of people who just co-sign stuff and they'll say yes to people the whole time thinking like, that's a bad idea my friend's about to do. Like they're like, you know what I mean? The friend's like, yeah, I got you. And the person's just thinking, I got other shit I got to take care of right now. But they're not like, yo. No, actually, that's a bad idea what you were just thinking of doing. And I don't think you should do that because here's the 3-step process of consequences that are most likely going to happen. And I don't have to be a rocket scientist to give you that equation. He's going to find out. He's going to be super pissed at you. It's going to be a bad breakup. This is going to happen, or vice versa. She's going to get pissed off. You can see it happening, but friends don't stop it. And it's because people have yes men around them and women because they like the likes. Everyone wants to be liked, which is different from being loved. Because if you're loved, you have to stop a friend and say, you know, hey, this can't go on or I can't be a part of it. But one of those two things have to happen, you know?
Yep. Yeah. The sea of kind of just how much we get away with and allow each other to get away with because it's just what's conformity.
Yep.
you know, and I think that sort of bleeds into a conversation that I was really hoping to have, and I definitely wouldn't let you go without us having it, is the frequencies that we carry, bro. You
Yeah.
know, and it's yeah, you know, we've talked a little bit about cultivation, but then, you know, potentially where it's jeopardized and a lot of, you know, how it's manipulated by others, how we conform to the world around us. But I guess maybe some of your insider sort of drop-ins around, um, just some of your insider drop-ins around how we, yeah, how do you cultivate your own frequency and how do we stay connected to the frequencies we carry, like the intentionality
Mm,
behind that? Can you shed some light there, brother man?
sure. So everything in theory carries a frequency because frequency is just information. It's information from vibration. If you look at the basics of something like frequency, it's the basic vibration of any sort of energetic change. So if something's stable, there is no vibrational frequency that's really shooting off of it because it's not vibrating. Something's stable. Once something has energy or force behind it, it could be thought, it could be movement, it could be all these things. It creates vibration, and that sends out a signal into the atmosphere. We are all antennas. We all are receivers. We pick up and receive these things. It's the same kind of way if people ever walked into a room and they can sense like, oh, I don't want to talk to that person. They have a weird energy. Everyone can sense these things, right? So we can send signals of tension, of stress, of sexual desire, of attraction, even just like friendship attraction. You're like, there's something about you. I don't know. Yeah, it's similar frequencies. You've been vibrating on a similar frequency. So when you see it and you see it in the person's eye, you're like, yeah, you know, we should hang out sometime because you can feel that frequency. If someone wasn't on that frequency, if their frequency was like this and yours was like this, you might not get along. But if two people are like this, we both like to mosh pit, we're on the same frequency. Yeah, on the same frequency. So when I think about the frequency that we emit, the first thing is I have to say is that there's a lot of static that's put into our atmosphere that most people don't know they are resonating at, because people usually don't. Yeah, they don't really even think about that unless they have like a health scare or something. They're not thinking of what frequencies they're ingesting. They think about what food they are, and people really just started getting smart about food. Well, let's just say smart about food. There was a time period where they weren't even looking at what's on the back of labels. It was a pretty good chunk where parents weren't carrying microwave, throw it in there. And, you know, like, oh, what's this fructose stuff? That tastes good. Like nobody was paying attention, but these people were in charge. That's what's scary. Okay. So that there's this thing where you go, yeah, but you're in charge. Your job is to pay attention. Imagine you were a security guard. Your job was to protect the next generation. And you didn't even look at what you're putting into our bodies. Like, wait a second. Now, I don't fault you because I really believe there was a form of, once again, this level of hypnosis that was happening, that people weren't understanding what's happening in the world. So I can't fault someone for mentally seeing that it was mass herd manipulation where no one was paying attention. But I can say, if your job is to serve and protect and you are not on duty, you have failed at your job at a certain level. And there has to be an understanding of that and not a put aside of that. Just like an own up of like, you know what? We need to get better, which I think people are doing now. They're getting better at what they eat and getting better at what they put into themselves, because they're understanding that this body takes form of what you put into it, mentally, physically, you know, emotionally. That's what it becomes. So if you are aware of what you're putting into it, you're most likely aware of the outcome and what that will attract in general, right? So that's the first part. Is there's a lot of static out there. One I would say is that musically, there are interesting things that you can do with vibration, anything from 528 hertz, 432 hertz, 417, I think 111 is also on the hertz. And for anyone who might be listening to this, the hertz is basically the vibration at which something is moving. Most of what we hear on the radio is at 440 hertz, but that frequency, when studied, and I don't have all of the manuscripts around, but I have seen videos of people putting the sine wave, the generator where I have back here, they've put that into molecules of water and they've magnified them, and they look kind of like a ball with spikes, right? But then when they've changed it to different things like 528 or 432, it actually spreads out in these beautiful geometric shapes. It's very expansive. And so you start to think about the frequencies that go into our bodies on a daily basis. And if you look into people who are healing Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, leukemia, all kinds of things using sound, it's because the vibration of what's exterior to us also correlates with our interior. It's kind of like you hear the phrase water is, 75% of your body, or water is this. It's the same thing with vibration. It's happening in your voice. It's happening from your heartbeat. It's happening when you breathe. Vibration is happening with your actions. Vibration is equally as important as the water that we talk about, but no one talks about vibration. So whenever you say that word, people get real, like, they think it's like hippie-ish. Oh, vibration. I'm like, no. If I bang a hammer against a nail, it's going to have a vibration. There's going to, if I bang against a metal thing, it's going to go ding. Just like if I bang a string, it's going to have a certain vibration. If I can harmonize those vibrations, I have a better chance of creating some sort of unifying frequency that is integrated into the matrix in a way that pushes its clarity and evolution forward. I can be a part of that. Right? If I choose to go against that, I actually am going the opposite direction, and I literally can choose it. Someone can tomorrow make a vibration that's very negative and very against other people. I've seen it on the internet. Some people's vibration on the internet is wild.
Trolls.
It's wild.
It's whack.
I never even knew about this, man. Like, I don't really step my head out too much. And I opened up this YouTube channel where I break down songs and show everyone like the hidden secrets and hit songs and like how they're created and all this stuff. And man, I read some of the comments. Some people are really nice, and then every once in a while you get like a couple of people who are just pissed off at the world, and you don't know why. And it's not really directed towards you because you don't know this person.
Reflection of them, yeah, totally.
They talk to you like they know you, and they're very rude, as if you're doing something to them, and they'll curse and stuff. And I'm like, I'm just telling people, like, see what they're doing in that hit song. Here are the 3-part harmonies they're singing. It's this note, this note, and this note. And then someone will just be pissed. And I'm like, this is interesting. So what I'm seeing, and it's just the unfortunate imbalance in our world, is because everyone wants this idea of everything being open, they won't allow a kid at 10 to drink alcohol, but they'll give a kid a tablet, which is probably the most addictive thing that kid could have.
Yeah.
And sugar, which is probably one of the most addictive things that kid can have. But they won't give that kid alcohol because no one's studying what it actually affects and how it works. And so same thing with vibration, like I say. And so the tuning of someone's vibration, I think is interesting, because I feel like with emitting certain frequency, if we're talking about vibration, a lot of it really just starts with your intention of thought. And it sounds hokey because it sounds very simple, and you probably heard someone say it before, and it's not new news, I think. But the reality is that when you remove the idea that you're the genius, or that person's genius, and that there is genius and one can embody that, it's different, because then the energy is free to flow of genius throughout genius. When someone puts it, I'm like, that person is the genius, like that, unless they have a very special gift, that's something different. But I'm saying for the most part, people highlight others without really knowing the depth of it, just because they're in front of something, right? And so I feel like what happens is when you have really pure intention to who you genuinely are, and it's not based off an identity that you've created because it makes you feel good through like, well, because that happened to me, this is who I am now, and that's okay, even though I'm doing things that are self-sabotaging, or even though I'm doing things that are sabotaging to others. But that's because of what happened to me when I was younger. And even though I'm an adult, I haven't fixed that stuff, but I'm on my journey, quote unquote. That's going to emit a frequency that's going to be very static because the intention is static.
Yeah, see.
And so I think until people get to a point where they genuinely, and I'm saying this in the clearest way, they have a conversation with their soul. Until they get to that point, which is really hard to get people to get through, because they hear of soul all over the place, and they give different names, and it doesn't really matter what name someone gives it. So even the name soul, let's just say they haven't spoken to their real selves. They call it their higher self or the lower vibration. They give it all these different names. It's out. Yeah. All these things that are completely outside of themselves. And I go, no, you haven't talked to you yet. You're talking to people on Tinder. You're talking to people on the internet. You're voicing your stuff in the comments. You haven't even asked yourself why you do what you do. And until you ask those questions, can you really emit a frequency that's true to you, which is really what brings the balance and the harmony back into the evolution of the planet of what I was talking about. If that's not an aligned, we're just bouncing off the walls with different frequencies that are trying to find harmony and then usually not working together. And that's why people who get together, they break up. There's a kid in the world. Now there's another baby dad, another baby mama that gets thrown around because everyone's just bouncing these frequencies around because they think by looking at something that it's the frequency. A frequency isn't a sight thing. It's a tuning thing. That's different. So you walk into the room and you see someone else, you're like, oh, they're attractive. It's perfect that I came out tonight. This is meant to be. And then you talk to them and you're like, oh, they're not all the way there, but I'll still go home with them. They're not someone who I know I can have a full conversation with all the time. They're not someone I probably would drop things for, but hey, you know, maybe it'll work. And they start to push these frequencies together to mish them together, hoping that something will come out of it. And then you see these people, they get in these relationships they don't want to be in. They fight, they argue, they do this, they do that. And I'm like, you guys are not tuned at all. And then someone will say, well, opposites attract. I'm like, no, core beliefs attract. You don't have core beliefs with someone that you can be tuned together. That's not going to work out after too long.
Oh, Brother Bear, thank you so much for sharing the eloquence with which you have afforded us to sort of unpack so many slippery nebulous concepts, brother, is really, really, really a treat. And
thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of resonance here. I really, really resonate with a lot of what you've shared. And thank you so much for going there and unapologetically so. I really, really love it and really honor you for being here, doing this with us. I am so excited to share this with the world, man. But before I get to that point, I just want to thank you for doing this with us today. Thank you so much for you doing you. And thank you so much because it's not just today's conversation that illuminates this little opportunity that we have. It's a lifetime's of work that comes into this. So I just want to honor that in you as well, Brother Bear. Thank you so much for
Appreciate that. Thank you, man. Thank you.
I look forward to hopefully doing this again soon if you're up for it.
Cool, man. Yeah, just let me know. Throw it at me. These are always fun.
Yeah, and we'll put a bunch of links to Adam's stuff in the show notes for those tuning in. Inspired Evolution Tribe, brothers, sisters, we love you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. An absolute pleasure to be your brother by your side on this journey together. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment. And if you want to stay in tune for new episodes launching every Monday, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next video. Stay inspired to evolve.